Hi everyone, my name is Bartosz Jabłoński, and I'm really happy and proud to be invited speaker for the SAS Global Forum 2021 virtual event. I hope you will join this presentation. And without further ado, let's jump into the details. Title of the presentation is My First SAS Package, a how-to. This is a short tutorial which presents how you can build your SAS package using the SAS packages framework. Before we go into details, let me briefly introduce myself. So I'm Bartosz, as I said. I'm working at Citibank Europe PLC, and I'm teaching at Warsaw University of Technology at the Faculty of Mathematics and Information Science. I'm active member of Polish SAS users group. I'm one of those guys who turns on them problem solver when heard something like, you probably can do something like this in SAS. As I mentioned, I'm an active member of Polish SAS users group, and I encourage you to visit our webpage and familiarize yourself with the Polsuk. We're trying to popularize SAS among Polish SAS programmers. And now let's go into the details of the presentation. So we are starting with my first SAS package. The idea of building such framework and the idea of creating SAS packages was mostly driven by the following programming languages: TeX, which is document processing programming language; R, which is statistical analysis language; and Python, which is general purpose language with focus on the data processing within the recent years. And all of them has this common property that whenever user creates some interesting code and wants to share this code with others, just creates a package and distributes this solution within the package. So my question was, why can't you do such a thing with SAS? And after a few hours of development and programming, I created this concept and idea of SAS packages and SAS packages framework. So SAS package itself is automatically generated zip containing organized code structure. It's prepared by the developer and distributed among users. And the purpose of this idea is to create a, as I'm writing here, simple and easy to access code sharing medium. So on one hand side, developer creates code which is organized as the developer wants, and at the other hand, user can work with it without any problem of accessing all required programming elements. And the framework, the SAS package framework, is the group of macros which allows you to work with the packages. Where to get the framework? So the simplest approach would be to visit the following GitHub repository. When you turn on a web browser and use any of the search engine, and you just write GitHub SAS_packages and press enter, probably one of the top results will be location of the framework repository. Go to this page. You can familiarize yourself with the concept in more details. If you are seeing this web page for the first time, I encourage you to check out this Getting Started with SAS Package presentation. We introduced it from the user point of view. If you want to see more details, I encourage you to check out this SAS Global Forum 2020 presentation, SAS Packages, the way to share. This is detailed description of the idea. And there are also some general overview videos presented on various conferences or meetups. Watch them and make yourself familiar with the concept. Today we are focusing on the creating the package, so we are developers, and the goal of this presentation is to show you how to build your first SAS package using the SAS packages framework. The steps to do so are very straightforward. There are 3 of those steps. The first is related to creating proper setup of files and folders. You need to download the framework. Then you have to create a folder for the package where you put all the package data, you need to create so-called description file, which contains metadata for the package. And then you just execute those 3 lines of code. First 2 of them are enabling the framework. The third one generates the package. And the final step is to check results of the process. You can read the summary and the log of the session in which you are generating the package, and you can check the test results, because also the functionality of testing is provided with the framework. And if everything is okay, you can share the package. So now we have the general overview what we want to do. And now I would like to present this live demo during which I will create a Sass package named my package, and we'll try to explain you what step you have to do to build the package yourself. So let's dive into the details. I created here on my home directory this folder named Sass packages, in which I'm going to store the framework and then folders and files required to build a package. So the first step of the process is to obtain the Sass packages framework. I'm going to run the code with the help of this Enterprise Guide version 8. So the first line creates file name reference named packages to this location where I'm going to store the framework and keep the package information. Now the lines 3 to 5, they are downloading the data about the framework from the GitHub repository. Well, they enabling the codes contained in this SPF init.sass file, and then the line number 7 installs the framework, which is equivalent of downloading the package into the location pointed by the packages file name, so into the Sass packages folder. Usually this is the place where I'm winking to Sass and say, guys, maybe you would like to incorporate the idea of Sass packages into base Sass, so we don't have to do this step, and you can just use the framework right out of the base Sass. So think about it. So now let's run the code. You can see here in the log that between those lines, the framework was enabled, and lines here shows you the information about the process of installing the package. So when we refresh the folder, we can see that the SPF init.sass file containing the framework was already downloaded to the location. So we have the framework, and the next step will be to prepare the package content. For this presentation, I have this little Sass file containing the code from which we are going to build the package. And let me show you what components do we have inside. This code contains several elements, 9 in total. There is part of the code which creates a library named mylib. There are 2 functions created, f1 and f2. There is a format and informat created with the help of proc format procedure. There are 2 data sets, small data set located in mylib library, and bigger data set also located in mylib library. Then there is a macro named mcr1, which executes some data step using the functions f1 and f2 and the small data set. And at the end, we have macro2, which is in fact a wrapper for macro1, and just run it because it's using the name of the macro1 as a parameter, starting parameter for this macro. I'm not going to go into very details of this code. So since this presentation is pre-recorded, you can pause your video and examine the code exactly. So now we have this code, and the thing which we have to do with this one flat file is to split it into separate pieces so we can create a structure of the package. So the first assumption is that each component should be stored in a separate file. What I mean by that? We have here a code generating a library, and the library name is mylib. So we want to put this code into a separate file named mylib.sass, and this file will be containing only this code. Next, we have function f1, and we want to store this code in the separate file named f1.sas, and this file will contain only the code on the function. The same for f2, the same for format. We just copy paste the body of the format definition into a separate file named fmt num, and the same for informat. Then we put the mylib small dataset into code generating mylib small dataset into a file named mylib.small-dataset.sas, and this file will be generating this data. Now, we create the same for the bigger dataset, and we also create two separate files for macros, and both of them are named the same as the macro name. So we have one object, one file, and the file name is exactly the same as the object name, with one additional requirement that the file name is in lowercase letters. So when we have such 9 files, then we have to separate them into several folders according to the type of the code contained in the file. I already did this for us, so let me copy paste the proper prepared structure for the code into the server on which we are working. Here it is. The name of the folder is my package, so this is the same name as we'll name the package which we are creating. This is not necessary requirement, so you can name the folder whatever you want, but it's more convenient if it's named the same as the package name. And the folder is structured in the following way. Okay, as you can see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 files. Each file contains only the selected part of the code. One is for mylib library, 2 are for function f1 and f2, 2 are for format and informat, then for datasets, and then 2 for macros. And what is additional here to this splitting into separate files is putting those files into folders named according to the following structure. Each folder has a numerical prefix, then there's underscore, and there is the name of the type of the code which is stored in the given folder. The numbering here is to keep your files in the ordering of loading your files when package is loaded by the users in the proper way, in the way that you as a developer want them to be loaded. And the second part, the type, informs the framework what kind of code is stored in a given file within this folder. So here, lib name type means that all the files within this folder contains definition of libraries. Then the functions type means that all the files contained inside this folder contains definition of the functions. And the same for formats, for data. Here you see this is an interesting example, lazy data. This is a folder which contains files with code which generates a data set, but they are not loaded automatically when the package is loaded by the user, but they are loaded on demand. So user has to explicitly ask to load this data in the data set into the session. And here is a folder for macros. So basically we've got this simple structures which are organized and separates different types of components. And this is almost everything what we need to have. There's one more additional thing to do. This final step which is required is to create the description.sas file, which contains metadata about the package. So we can create such file inside my package folder. Just copy it here. And now let's open it. Structure of the description.sas file is very simple. There are 2 parts. The first part named the header part, and the second part named description part. The header part contains a group of key value pairs, which describes the meta parameters of the package. Key value pairs are the following. here's the type, which is constant, indicating that this is the metadata about the package. And the second part indicates the package name. The title is a tag which informs you what's the purpose of the package. It's one single sentence describing the package. Then there is the version number. Then there is a list of authors and maintainers. Then there is license. I will talk about it a little more in one sec. There's information about encoding of the files which are contained in the package. And there is this optional parameter name required, which is quoted, comma separated list of SAS components required for the package to work. The description part starts with the description start tag and ends with the description end tag, and basically is multi-line text informing about the package. This is part of the help package information. And here you can elaborate a little bit more about the package and its structure. So when we have the description SAS file created, we have the content of the package created. There is not too much to do anymore, except for two things. One is the licensing, about which I mentioned already. So basically, if you want to distribute the package on any other condition than MIT license, you need to create a license.sas file inside the package folder and put the text of your license inside that file. And then you have to change this tag here from MIT to the proper license name. And in case you want to have your package distributed on the MIT license, you don't have to create the file because the framework already create one for you. The second thing which would be good idea to add to our package is the help information. I already mentioned that the information from the description within the description.sas file is used as a help information for the package, but also each file and element of the package can be provided with additional help information. How to do it? It's very simple. Let's start with the macro 2 because I have prepared it for you over there. So you can see that here's the code of the macro 2, and it is one-to-one copied from the one we saw in the code prepared for our exercise, the one here. And the code of the macro is surrounded by some additional comments. You can see them here and here. And those comments are surrounded by this help start, help end tags, which indicates where the text of the help information for the given object starts and ends. As you can see, we have two texts here and here, which will be considered as a help information when user runs the help package macro when he or she will be using the package. You can also wrap up the raw code of your macro function or whatever you have with the stacks, and also then this part of the code will be printed out as a part of help information for the package. It's good to put the help information in each file, and at least you have to put the tags help start, help end in each file, because otherwise, when the package will be generated, there will be a warning in the log that framework find out a file with the code which doesn't contain tags with the help information. So, for example, for our function f1, it's just a simple text informing that this is the f1 function. But of course, this is just for the demo purpose, and I'm sure that when you're going to prepare your own package for productional purpose, it will be more elaborated. Okay, so we have all components of our package prepared. We've got the description file, we've got the structure of the files and folders within the My Package folder, and the step which we are going to execute now is the process of generating the package with use of SAS package framework. So let's go into it. Okay, so let's generate the package. We need to run those two lines to enable the framework, and then this line to generate the package. The argument of a macro generate package is the folder containing the package content. The generate package macro assumes that the description.sas file is located in this directory, and all the subfolders are structured within these rules that one file, one object, and files with the code are separated within the folders, ordered with the structure you want them to be ordered. So let's run the code. And let's see the results in the log. So there were no errors. There is only one warning, and this warning is expected because, as I said earlier, we didn't provide the license file for the package. So the default MIT license was generated for us within the package. The next thing to investigate in the log is this part named creating package content. This is the list of the files embedded into the package. The list is based on the my package subfolder structures, and this is the information whether the file was copied inside and whether it was copied successfully. And the final part here is this place where you can verify the SHA-256 checksum for the package file. Now, if we refresh the folder here, you will see my package.zip file, and this means that the package was created successfully. Now, when we go to the result window, we'll see the following information. Here's the general information about the package, so where it's located, when it was generated, on which version of SAS. There is the name of the package, the version number, the license name. There's the information about required SAS components for the package to work, and there is the short summary of components of the package. So we have 9 components inside. There is the checksum repeated, and here at the bottom we have this very interesting table informing us about result of a test executed on the package. The framework itself to execute the test required the XCMD to be enabled and automatically generates the test of loading the package. The XCMD is required because there is a separate session called by the systas command to execute this process of testing. If you want to add your own tests to the process, you can do it with a very simple step. In the package folder, you add a test folder, and inside this folder, you put the list of files with the test which you want to execute. And then during the testing phase of the package generation, all the files from this folder will be included in the testing process. So as you can see, we have this mypackage.zip file created inside the mypackage directory, and this is our package which we can now use and share. Full content of the mypackage folder with the structure after adding the description SAS file and the test folder looks like this. And since we have our package generated, let's double check that everything was okay by loading this package into SAS session. But just to show you that this is a universal solution, I'm not going to test the package on this Linux machine, but I move the file to the Windows machine, and I will show you that you can just how straightforward you can use the package created on the Linux machine with the Windows system. So let's go and check it. Okay, so here I have this folder located on my desktop. It's named SGF 2021, and I'm going to copy the my package file zip inside this folder. Here it is. And we also need the framework inside that folder. So since we already have it here, let's make a copy. And now let's jump into the SAS session and let's copy this location. Let's run the code. You can see in the log that the code was executed. There's, as usual, not too much information when you are doing include statement. And now let's use the load package macro, and we are going to load my package into our session. So let's run this code. So you can see here in the log, how the process is described. We start to load the package from this location. We have the general information about the package, the components of the package, of the library, of FCMP, so two functions, of the format, to format any format was created. We created small data set with 4 observations. We created macro 1 and macro 2. And as you can see, there is no information about this bigger data set, which is used as lazy data. And that's why we are going to load it into the session one more time. And just load everything which you have for the lazy data. You can see here in the log that there's information about loading the lazy data, and the dataset was created. So here in the work, we have a folder with the macros, macro 1 and 2. We've got set with the functions and catalog with the formats. And then in mylib library, we've got 2 datasets created. Okay, so the package was created. It was loaded into separate SAS session on the different operating system, and everything went okay. It wasn't very hard to create this package. You just have to keep in line with those simple steps which are required for package to be built. And that's more or less the end of the live demo. So now let's get back to the presentation for one sec. As you could see, there was not too much more than those simple steps described on the single slide. So the process of creating packages is really simple and straightforward. This is all I would like to present today. So thank you very much for your attention. Dziękuję, as I would say in Polish. You can reach me out at this email. You can see here if you have any question or want to learn more. There are some additional information about how to build and use packages within those 2 articles, one for the SAS Global Forum 2021 and one from this 2020 previous. There are some links to additional sources which can improve your way of understanding of the concept of packages and creating them in the SAS. And as a final element of this presentation, I would like to say thank you to Filip and Krzysztof. Those guys helped me a lot with the project, and they gave me a lot of very valuable advices. So thanks, guys, for your help. And I hope in the future, when we meet in the future, maybe in the live meeting, not on the virtual one, you would be able to say that, okay, I already created my first SAS package. Thank you very much. Have a great day, and see you somewhere in the future. Bye.